We're teaming up with Focus on the Family to offer a new, informative, helpful speaker series. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Our information-saturated world runs on a flurry of news headlines, one after the other, all calling us to either shock or outrage. It's tempting to just want to turn off all the noise. It's almost like the world just constantly comes into our clean rooms and dumps a new pile of dirty laundry for us to deal with. So it's tempting to just want to shut the door and stop the madness. But for Christians, simply closing our eyes and plugging our ears is just not an option. We might choose occasional silence or a sort of media fast for a while, but God has not called us to this time and this place in history just to disconnect from it. At the same time, we need the ability to discern between what's noisy and what ultimately matters. All of the breathless headlines and news stories can often distract us from the really important issues that we face. Christians must believe that the specific stories of our culture don't ultimately reveal the what of what we should care about, but they are in reality the when and the where. In other words, our culture is the context where God has called us to live out our faith. Another way to put this is that this cultural moment is the stage, not the plot. It's the moment, it's not the story. The news is where we see the ideas and their consequences expressed, both good and bad. It's where the philosophies that were born in ivory towers meet the realities of people's lives, their dreams, their decisions. Confusing the noise and chaos of the headlines with the real story of the world is simply the most common way that Christians lose their way. As Christians, as part of God's story, it's important to trust the divine script writer. God hasn't called us to success as we see it in this moment. He's called us to be faithful, to faithfully play out our part of the story. Like any great play, the actors can forget their role, lose their place in the storyline, miss their entrance, forget their lines. Thank God that he, our director, is as good as it gets. Well, this year, the Colson Center is partnering with Focus on the Family to produce a series of events that are aimed at offering Christians a deeper level of understanding about the issues that matter most. This special speaker series will focus on some of the most confusing and most controversial parts of our culture right now, specifically those issues at the intersection of family and culture. The series will be presented in 3 parts this spring and then 3 parts this fall. It'll feature a who's who of thought leaders addressing areas where we need to refocus our attention on the roles and responsibilities we have as Christians to be agents of redemption in the context of our community. The series starts tonight with Dr. Anthony Bradley of the King's College. He'll be addressing the very important issue of how we are failing young men through a tyranny of low expectations, soft relationships, absent fathers. Ours is a culture that is desperately failing to transition boys to men. In March, Katie Faust of Them Before Us will be addressing the various ways that children's rights are being sacrificed on the altar of adult desire. I hope you'll join us, the Colson Center, and Focus on the Family for this very special series called Lighthouse Voices. It begins again tonight with Dr. Anthony Bradley on what we can do to stop failing young men. You can register for the live stream by going to colsoncenter.org/events. That's colsoncenter.org/events. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.